Welcome back, everybody. Hey, today here on the Christian Profile, who is the church? We have Santino, otherwise known as Tino. Tino, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate having you in, and taking the time out to come out. So just to kick this little interview off here a little bit, I start with everybody.
Sure.
What was childhood like growing up? So, by the way, though, like you're the youngest guy we've had on here so far.
Praise the Lord.
This isn't like a lot of times people were talking about childhood like up till they're 30. So we don't have that with
I'm
you.
not even there yet.
So, So what did the childhood look like?
Yeah. So I was fortunate. I had an extremely loving mother and a grandmother that raised me. So similar to you, talking about your dad really wasn't in the picture.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the scenario with me. But I was fortunate to have a loving mother and a grandmother that was always there for me and cared for me. It was challenging when I was younger because I would see my friends that had the mom and the dad and the nuclear family.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was something that was it was hard. But looking at it now, God used that to shape me to be more disciplined, I think, in certain areas of my life. So coming off of that, I was also raised a Roman Catholic, and most of my family are Roman Catholic, and they're not practicing Roman Catholics.
Yeah.
They're just Roman Catholics.
Yeah.
So I knew about God. I didn't really, I believed in him, but so does the devil, the Bible says. So I would go to a Sunday school for Catholics, and I'd go through the whole shebang. I was confirmed in the Catholic Church. And it really wasn't until around 16 or 17 where I started to kind of be curious about, all right, what's the meaning here of life? Because there was some biblical things I was taught, which was far and few between.
Yeah.
But there's some things that I remember, and I believed in God, but I wasn't saved at that point. So this is when I come to Wilkes University. So I currently go to Clark Summit University now, and before I went there, in Wilkes University, we came across a Christian Fellowship Club. And I was walking around, and I was just putting my name down for a bunch of random clubs.
Yeah.
Engineering club, and
You don't know.
Nope.
But you're willing to check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
And that same day, one of the guys that he actually led me to Christ, and I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But he said, hey, if you're done with classes tonight, come over to Starbucks, because we had a Starbucks on campus. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
I wasn't opposed to it. And from that point on, we really got to connect, and he shared the gospel with me, and I was intrigued.
Yeah.
I wasn't closed off, but I was content. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was living my life. And he encouraged me, start reading the Bible.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, where do I start? So I started reading the Gospel of Matthew, and I started to enjoy it. And I really, really started to understand more about who Jesus is and what the purpose of life is.
So you didn't, in that, man, I'm going to lose track.
No, you're good.
But
You're good.
going back, like saying I didn't have the nuclear family, so many people don't. Like, and like you said, I didn't necessarily, in that looks different maybe for each person. Sure. You're talking to a lot of people out there. This is real common. And there is that idea of, I saw the mom and dad this, or I would have loved to have that. There's a lot that comes along with that in life and hurdles to overcome. So you're speaking to a lot of people there in the first place. And then when, now I'm fast forward.
No, you're good. You're good.
To where you're in college now, and this is more recent, you go to Starbucks, right? They would have lost me there. Not a Starbucks. But so you're at Starbucks, but have you really given your life to the Lord yet? Or
yet.
You haven't. So you're reading Matthew, but it's something's happening. Something's making sense.
Yeah. At this point, like I said, I wasn't closed off, but I was open.
Yeah.
But I would also probably be open at that point if I don't know, a Muslim came to me.
Sure.
I was exploring. I didn't know what. And right after he really connected with me and encouraged to start reading Scripture, I started reading the Bible every day. And this is when it got to the point where I was like, all right, I really like this.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I'd be up till eons of the hour at night studying a bunch of different Christian doctrines.
Yeah.
And different things. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Right.
And it's by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I told you before we were chatting, I wouldn't have chosen this.
Yeah.
But
no, it's just cool. It's cool. Yeah, it is. It's cool when you because something happened in your life. You can't maybe explain. You can't put a finger on it. You can't show someone that physical thing, but something happened in your life and you're different. And that's Yeah, it's special. It's a special moment in time for you, for sure. And so, at what point is it that in the mix of that, because we're not talking that far back, where is it that you say, no, I'm giving my life to you, God? Like, where is it that you truly become saved?
Yeah.
So to speak.
So probably in between when I first met, his name is Brian, and I'll chat about him. My mentor, love him to death because God used him.
Yeah.
God used him to share the gospel. But probably in between that time and the church I'm a part of now, Mead Street Baptist Church, great church. I love my pastor there. And it's probably about maybe 2 or 3 months in between that period when I wanted to get hooked up to a local church. So I get shared the gospel at Wilkes. I start reading the Bible. I started going to some of their meetings on Wednesday nights. He would, it wasn't church, but it was kind of like that. We would sing a few hymns, and there'd be a message. So in between that time period, he said, "All right, I was still going to the Catholic Church. Okay,
yeah.
I think I was saved at this point. I can't put a specific date on it, but I think this is when I truly came to faith. And like, okay, I want to go to a church that preaches the gospel. Okay. And I started, researching Catholicism. Like, okay, I think I could find better. So that's when I got hooked up to Mead Street Baptist Church.
Okay.
And in that time period, God really, he grew me in a way that I can't explain to you, just like I said before.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic, and that's interesting where even you're talking about, like, I'm going to the Catholic Church, but I'm being drawn to something else, whatever, and this piques your interest, and you go there, and now you're getting this whole other, I don't know how to say it, but you're getting fed something you haven't been fed, and so to speak, it tastes good. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about that is, I would kind of leave in the Catholic Church like, there's more. There's more to this. There's more to this that I'm not getting here.
Right.
And it was almost a void. So I would say at that point, I truly was regenerate, but I knew there was more to the Bible than what I was being taught.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I want to get connected to this church that I heard about. And, and within that short time period, a person who was raised a Roman Catholic, a person that was living in sin, God transformed in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I could have never in a million years imagined this is where I'd be today.
Right. Yeah, it changes everything.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, absolutely not. Right. Like you start to see, I hate to say it, but it's like there's this great benefit in God. There really is. And I mean, he's the creator. He made us. And I can never get away from it in my life. We're designed and we're created, and it's meant to be in this relationship with God. And I just, if you are putting diesel fuel in your gasoline engine, it's not going to run right. And when you are trying to live life without God, I don't know how to explain it, because on the outside, things in life can look like they're going good. But inside you're missing something, and it's not running right.
That's a perfect illustration, because that's, when I think about it, is people outside of Christ, we're trying to fill our lives with, there's a void. There's an inevitable void in our lives, and we're trying to fill it with whatever. I mean, you could pick whatever type of sin or whatever it is. And until you truly come to faith in Christ, that'll never be filled.
No. And to be honest, so I think you could connect it to sin if you want to, in a way, but you could just be doing things that not necessarily sin.
No, not yet.
But you're chasing them to fill a hole. It could be sports, it could be a house, vehicles, academics, right? I mean, you name it, right? But it doesn't fill the hole. You get there, and it's like, that's not the thing. I'll go on to the next thing. And not that they're not bad. Like, it's like, boy, you should chase those things. They're goals. They're good. You should. And when I say chase, understand me. It's like you should go after. You should have goals.
Sure.
But it shouldn't. You're just going to find that that's not the thing that fulfills. It's just not. And so maybe on top of that, one of the questions I always ask, keeping it the discussion going here a little bit, is like, what is a moment of time where, and maybe you haven't experienced it, I hope you haven't, maybe, but it's a rough time in life, a rough experience through life, that you really find God show up. Like, what was, and if you want to share it too, what's the experience, and how do you see God move in that?
Yeah. So I've probably been a Christian for about 2 years, and like I said, God has worked. I can't explain it. Yeah. He's grown me so much. I don't say this in a prideful way, but I do feel confident enough that I could probably handle the scriptures better than a lot of people that have been Christians for a lot longer.
Right.
And that's
you're
his
diving
glory.
in. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that's
really...
his glory. But yeah, so I was with a girl for about 2.5 years, and probably right after we broke up, that's when I kind of started to see things fall apart in a sense. What I was kind of doing is, and God revealed this to me, I was making, and we were talking about idols before, I was idolizing a relationship.
Mhm.
You know, I was really, and that's something I value. You know, I want to be a husband one day. I want to take care of a family.
That's
But-
one of those things that you could relate to sin
Right.
when you're idolizing,
Exactly.
but it's not.
Right, because that's
It's a good
not,
thing.
right, it's not something bad in itself. But
Literally designed by God.
exactly.
Yeah.
But when it's to the point where that's all I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
and God becomes over here, and it's just relationship, relationship, relationship. Now he takes that away. Now it's like, okay, I've been focusing my eyes on this. How do I get the perfect relationship? Blah, 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 blah. Now it's not there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, God, so why?
It's devastating, man. And emotionally too. Yeah. I mean, that's like a...
So what's the next step here?
Yeah.
Because this is what I was chasing after.
Yeah.
And I learned that through this. And I haven't faced too many trials yet. Okay? Because listen, it's a lifetime, man.
It is.
But through that, I definitely learned that we make our idols. It's a problem. I mean, it's to the point where we like, it's like it becomes bigger than God.
I'm laughing because, man, I've done it so many times in life. You don't know it,
Sure.
whatever. And you know, I've been a Christian a couple more years or something, but it's like, yeah, I've found myself in it.
Oh, sure.
And it is just, it's part of life. And I think it's fantastic that you can even recognize it as that, especially when you're saying, you know, hey, yeah, I've been a Christian for maybe 2 years, but you're recognizing the areas that made idols. That's huge. How did you find, how did God, like, if you can even get specific, kind of, what did he say in that? How did he get to open your eyes to like, hey, this is what I'm doing and I'm off track?
Yeah, so during that time when we went through that breakup, that's when I started to play soccer for Clark Summit in the spring season. So I'd be up, I'd be going to lifting at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'd be in the car every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Yeah. So I'm waking up early and it's so dark out and I'm driving down the turnpike and it's 20 minutes to just think. Yeah. It's 20 minutes to be alone. And I like to listen to music, but in the morning I started to adopt, instead of listening to music, how about I just pray? So I began to just talk to God. Like, why? Why did you do this? Right. Is there a reason to this? Am I supposed to be with her? And I was rattling all these questions. And through that, I kind of figured that, you know, satisfaction doesn't come from the world. It comes from him. Yeah. And if we don't find our satisfaction in the creator of all these things, we're not going to satisfy the things that he created.
Nothing's going to. Yeah. I think that's fantastic, man.
And it was not easy, but it was probably a month of, and our spring season, it was short, but it was, you know, pretty much 3-4 days a week, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, on the road in the morning, which gave me so much time to really just marinate in these things and to ask God, like, give me something.
Isn't that the biggest thing, right? Like, how often, you know, you could feel kind of crazy or something.
Oh,
but
yeah.
This conversation we're having, we don't tend to have it with him.
Absolutely.
But when you do, and you did, boy, everything, the doors that opened up for you, right?
It's productive.
Extremely productive.
You know, one of my friends, he encouraged me, and I'm like, listen, I need some advice. Yeah. I'm kind of struggling here. I'm really upset. And he goes, wrestle with God. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? Yeah. Because I used to think of prayer as like this formal thing. And it's like, you just talk to him. Yeah. If you want to ask him why, ask him. Yeah. God, why did you do this? What's your purpose in this? Right. God, I don't think you're right here. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some times where I probably could have overstepped my boundaries.
You know, I don't think so, though. You know, and having children, like, I want my kids to do that. I had a talk with my son the other day, and I said, listen, feel free to challenge me on these things. Like, don't be disrespectful. But challenge me, because I want to explain the things you don't understand. I want to. And I think God really wants to do that with us. That's absolutely how we grow. And when you're doing that, right, what's going on? Why is this happening? He starts to explain, starts to show you things you never would have seen. And
but just lay back, right?
Yeah, man, that's going to be what a difference in your life that's going to make down the road, right? Because you're going to carry that knowledge now to the next thing. And the reality is if you and the girl you were with weren't meant to be together, you weren't doing yourselves any favor if you guys both just made it work, you know? And yeah, I mean that's just, to me, that's such a profound period of life, especially
in a month.
Yeah, starting your walk out with God, and it's like, yeah, you have that principle down, man. Yeah, where he could take you is like endless. You know, that's exciting. So on the back side of that one, maybe, have you found this really high moment in life? And how did God show up in that moment?
Yeah, so probably it would have to be in ministry. I spoke a little bit before. I got the chance to, one of my advisors at Clark Summit, he's given me a chance to go preach at a nursing home on Mondays. And connecting with people, it's a mixture between people that are saved and aren't. But man, it's just been such a reward and such a refreshment to share the hope that I have. To be able to truly like stand in front of people and give them the gospel, present it to them clear, and say, "Hey, this is how God has worked in my life. There's nothing that I could have done to deserve and earn this, but here's how I can encourage you." And it's kind of crazy because it's a big age gap, right? I'm going to be 21, and I'm talking to people that are 80, 85. But the way that we connected, it's not something that I could have put together. It was truly God. And the way that he moved in, I haven't been in a while because soccer and everything. But I think exploring more in ministry and involved in some kids ministry, it really just like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it really is. And I could see it for you, you know, like, and I don't know what God's exact plan is for you, but definitely you're well spoken and a good charismatic personality, right? That can, build a bridge between whether it's an age difference or an opinion difference, you know? And that's fantastic. I think I find for myself a lot of times, and I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but I put the question out there anyway. I find in the hard times in life where you found yourself really hurting. I'm knocking on the door constantly. Like, God, I'm wrestling with God. I like that. Whoever told you that, I like that analogy. I'm wrestling with them, and it's like, no, I'm not letting you go. We got to settle this because I'm hurting, you know. And I go through that, and so when I'm hurting, no doubt, I'm in God's presence all the time. I think sometimes when things are going really good, it's the spot where, like, man, what am I doing here? Like, I haven't included God in any of this, you know. And a buddy of mine, we were just talking the other day, and he calls me on the phone, and I didn't answer. I don't know what, I was in the middle of something, and I couldn't answer. And he said, well, I got off the phone. And I said, well, God, do you want to talk? And he's like, wait, why am I the second one? You know what I mean? But I tend to go there sometimes and I really want to be able to start experiencing God in every moment, the highs, the lows, but more than anything, the lows, man, I'm in his presence. I want to start doing that in the high. Like, how do I chase him when everything is great? Like, how do I still have the same fervor or whatever? That's probably not even the right word, but that same passion for him when things are good as when it's bad. So have you experienced any moments like that? And how have you found yourself respond to those moments?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I could give you 2 examples. So one example is, so we started off our soccer year, and we have a decent team this year. We're short on numbers. And it's kind of funny, like, we're all believers, and we'll pray with teams after games. And it's kind of funny to see the reaction of when we win versus when we lose.
Yeah.
Now, I know that seems like a childish example, but it's like, in succeeding, God is almost like not included. It's like, oh my gosh, we did so great today. We beat Keystone the other day, and we didn't really glorify God in that. It was like, look what we did. We beat Keystone for the first time in school history. But when we're losing games 6-5-0, it's like, God, help us to get through this.
We do it, man. And it's not funny, but it is, because it's like our human nature.
And then, translating that into my life, it's like, there's so many times where, the past week I've been dealing with some things, been busy with work, and, so many things add up. And it's like, God, help me through this, help me through this, help me through this. But then there'll be a time when I succeed on an exam or something, and it's almost like we forget. It's like we're praying for something, we get it, and then it's like, wait, did God do this or did I do it?
Right.
And it's like, well, we have to remember that this is what He did.
I'm
guilty of that.
I'm not sure if I know how to respond in the good. I do know how to respond in the bad, because I've been in the bad more than once, right? But I need to. I want to. I want to learn how to do good. Respond in the good.
Yeah, and how can we point other people to Jesus in the good?
Yeah.
Right. Well, instead of fluctuating in our pride and everything else, because like I said, I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah. I'm sure we all are in some way or another, most likely.
Absolutely.
But favorite Christian, not great. No. Favorite Bible verse since you become a Christian. I'm putting a lot of words before.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Put them in there. And since becoming a Christian, and why? Why is it the favorite?
Yeah. So funny that you asked that, because my pastor actually preached on my favorite verse this morning.
Yeah.
Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those who are called according to His purpose.
Yeah.
And at first, when I came across this verse, I did not really treat it as what it really means.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at it, all things work together for good. I'm just like, okay, well, I love God. I've been called, so that means everything's going to work together for good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. I learned that out quickly, that it's talking about God will use various things in your life, bad or good, to turn everything out for good.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of use that in the moments of life where kind of in the mundane style of things, like with school, going day and day and day, highs and lows. I kind of look like God is using every single moment in my life for good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that may be.
Right.
Because our definition of good is different from His.
Better believe it is. Yeah.
I mean, my version of good, I mean, I'd love to have a mansion. I'd love to be wealthy and healthy.
Yep.
But that's not realistic.
Right.
So God might use other things,
right,
for my good.
Right.
So that's been really helpful for me.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's easy, right, to sometimes leave part of that verse off. Oh, He works everything for good, right? But He does. He does work it for good. But it's not always. That's it's fantastic. So I think the last question I have before we wrap it up here is, I'm excited to have you on, especially being a young guy. I think that's important. Your background coming from nuclear family. I think that just speaks to so many people. It's just, I think that probably in society, I don't know these numbers, so I should probably just shut up. But it's like, it seems like in my head, more people are not coming from nuclear families than that are.
100%.
And so I think it's, that's important. And then, the transformation God's done in your life, and the pursuit of ministry. And we talked before, what does that look like? Right. Doesn't matter, because that ministry could be in anything. And not putting a label or a destination on where you have to go, but saying, hey, I'm just going to take this journey with you, God, and you lead me. I'm going to walk with you. Mm-hmm. You'll take me to places, right? And so I'm excited to have you out for that. But speaking to people out there who maybe haven't come from the nuclear family, who have had the challenges of life that maybe you've experienced, or sometimes as a young guy, right? I didn't go through, I mean, I was probably in my later 20s when I became a Christian, but people might be dealing with the idea that, hey, I have these plans. I want the mansion. I want this. God's not going to let me have it. I'm kind of nervous to give my life over to him. All of that stuff. If you can just think about that, what do you say to them?
Yeah, especially from my experience, God's a father to the fatherless. Mm-hmm. He will embrace you. He will embrace you with His open arms. He will love for you. He will care for you in ways that no earthly person can ever do. Yeah. So something that's really something that it took me a while to understand, because there's a lot of people that go through experiences like that when you think of God as their father, they're actually like appalled by that. They're like God is my father. Well, my father was this growing up. So I didn't have that. Mm-hmm. But what I can say is that no matter where you come from, God uses your story. Mm-hmm. God uses whatever you have gone through for His glory and for our good. Yeah. Whatever that looks like, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing. He's a father to the fatherless.
That He is.
And He's done that for me. I could see the way that He's providentially cared for me in my life. And this is before I was a Christian. Mm-hmm. But I see how He kept me out of those bad circles. Mm-hmm. I see how He's kept me away from the drugs and the alcohol and all that stuff in school. Yeah. And no, I wasn't a believer at that point, but He still was a father to me.
Yes, yeah. And that is the reality, and that is a bit of a conversation we had beforehand, that He will take care of you, and it will be for your best. Even if you don't see it right at the beginning, you will later, if you can lay down and put your trust in Him. So hey, thanks again for coming in. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. If you can, like us, share us, follow us.
Hit that like button.
Yeah, if you can. And Tino, thanks again for coming in. And
I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If we can, in the future, there's something else you want to share, you come back or give me a call, whatever. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya.